Howdy. For this one, I'm going to show you how to create various types of items. So for the first one, I'm going to show you how to make a weapon. So thankfully, the SRD does actually have a lot of items that are already made, but sometimes you might need something very specific. So I'll show you kind of like how you can set that up. You could definitely use the items that are in the SRD as like an example to be able to kind of get your feet wet and kind of learn how to do various different things. So starting with the sword. So the details are going to be your primary thing where you're going to be editing. So usually I turn off the proficient because depending on the character, it's going to whether or not they're going to be proficient or not with it. So for this one, we're making a great sword, so it's going to be heavy and two-handed. And for giggles, let's actually make it silvered. So for the activation cost, you're going to be one action. And for the target, I usually have it set for one enemy or one creature. Range is going to be 5 feet. And we will come down to the attack, and it's going to be a melee weapon attack. Let's actually change this to a martial weapon. Now that I just think about it. Martial melee weapon. And now for the modifier, you're going to set it for default because it knows it's martial and it's a heavy weapon. It knows it needs to be strength. So we'll even give it a +1 for giggles. And now let's add 2d6 plus at mod. And we'll even do the +1 for the extra damage for that. And it's going to be slashing damage. And then if it was a one-handed weapon and you had versatile damage, then you could add, if it's like a long sword that says 1d8, then you could do like the 1d10, and then you do like plus that mod like that. And that's how you do that for versatile damage, but we're not using that. And then you can go into the image here. I like to go to, for weapons and stuff, I'll go to the core data, and I'll go to icons, and I will go to weapons, and down to swords, and there's just a bunch of really cool sword icons in here that you can pick through. So we'll go with this one. This one looks pretty cool. All right, so that's pretty much it. And then depending on whatever weapon you're making, so if it needs something specific, so if the thing's going to cost 200 gold pieces, it weighs 10 pounds. Whoops, weighs 10 pounds, and then you can put in the description here. So like say if you were on like D&D Beyond, then you could, go through and, enter. So it's 50 gold pieces, 2d6 slashing, how much it weighs, the properties in it. And then if there's any like specific description info, then you could enter that here as well. Especially if you're making like a magical item or anything like that, then you might want to give it a little bit extra flavor and you can kind of add it in there. So that's it for that. So now for a potion, so it's going to be set for a consumable. So for this, we will go to the details again, and we'll whatever your activation cost. So if you make it be an action or bonus action, and so you can target one creature. We'll say you have to be within at least 5 feet. Don't want them to throw it, and you want it to destroy on empty. So once they use it, you don't want them to be able to just reuse it over and over again. So for this one, we'll make it a healing potion. So we'll change the formula and we'll say to 2d4 plus 2 and make it a little bit stronger. And we'll do healing. And then you can go through here on the icon. And in this one, actually, if you go to the user data and you go to system, D&D 5e, icons, and then items and potions, they actually have some cool potion bottles this year that you can pick from. And then again, go through description, enter in, cost, weight, everything like that. And that's pretty much it for consumables. For a tool, they're a little bit different because it has more things based on whatever your skills are proficient at or whatever characters you have. So like if you have a rogue, they're going to be proficient with these tools. So you could set it to non-proficient when you're creating it, but when you make the item put on the character, then you make sure you just change it to proficient, so that way they get the bonus for it. And then to whatever modifier it's going to be to it, any of the description in there, if it has to be, you know, something specific, just enter that in there. Or if you have any kind of chat flavor that you sometimes want to enter in for something cool, like like it makes like a particular sound with one special item, then you can add that in there. So whenever they use it, it'll pop it up in the chat window. Creates a nice little cool effect, and then you can go through and get whatever image you're going to go for it. So for a spell's pretty fun too because they are very unique and they create various different effects. So you'll have your spell level to whatever it's going to be. It's going to be a cantrip or, any type of class of magic. So let's do necromancy. We'll do a first level spell. Need to have verbal, somatic, I won't worry about materials, but if you had materials, you'd click material, and then you would actually put whatever material cost that you have in there. If it's a concentration spell, you check that. And if you're using dynamic act effects and then like midi quality of life or the combat utility belt, then you can activate the concentrator, and it'll know to turn that on whenever you're using that spell. If you once the spell is in their character sheet, then they can right click on it when it's in their item menu to prepare it, or you can have it prepared automatically when they transfer it over. And then depending on what type of ability it is, so if you're doing like say a cantrip, you're going to always have it prepared because it's one of your things that you just know. Or if you have say something like a drow that has innate spell casting, and so they have like dancing lights and like that, then you would set it up for innate spell casting, and it'll kind of break it up into different categories. And so for this one, we'll just do prepared, do one, we'll make it a bonus action. We will make the target one creature, say with it's in a range of 30 feet. And we will go, we'll do healing, and let's do temporary healing down here in the formula. And we'll do 2d4, whoops, we'll do 2d4 plus 3, or plus 4, it's fine. And we'll do temporary healing, and that will be that. And let's create an image for it. So I'll go to skills, and let's do this one. And that's that. Okay. And let's go down to a feature. So with features, you can use these for your player characters or for your NPCs or any kind of enemies that you're doing. So like for this one, I just had an example. It's like breath weapon. So you're going to set it up for whatever the activation cost is. So we'll do this one as a bonus action. We're going to say do this a 15-foot cone. And we will do limited use. So we'll say you can only do it once per long rest. Or if you have a situation where you have a dragon or something that's going to recharge after 5, then you wouldn't worry about this. And you'll turn that off, and then you'll click this button here to say charged, and then so you would say like 5. So then that way, whenever they don't have it charged at the beginning of their turn, it'll check to say, okay, I'll roll, and if they get a 5 or 6, it'll recharge it, and then they can use the effect again. So for this one, we'll say it's going to be a saving throw. We're going to do, let's do 3d6 fire damage, and we're going to make it a dex saving throw. Let's make it a flat 13 DC. And for breath weapons, I actually like really using this image. I think it looks really cool because it looks like a breath weapon. So, and then whatever the description is, again, you would throw it in there for that. And for the last thing, for like something like loot. So for kind of just any generic items or anything that you want it to be, this is a good thing to use, is just make it loot. So like for this one, I had like a pen. So I would say, I want to say it's in tools and scribble, and then so you could pick like a pen, and then you could do a description, simple ink pen used for writing utensils, and you could do the weight and all that. So I like to do, especially with some of the ones I'm doing, so for my Curse of Strahd campaign, I have a deed that I made that they find throughout the campaign, and that I actually took an image from the DM's Guild and put that on this item, so that way when they look at it, they can actually click on it and see the image of this cool deed that someone did a really good job of making this, and made it just kind of very that old time feel. So I really like being able to do that, and I'll do that with loot a lot. And then a lot of times what I'll do too is I will create, depending on the situation and where they're at, so they see like there's a table and there's a bunch of books and things on it, and they're like, hey, I want to investigate this table. Then I'll make a desk and actually put things on the desk to represent what's on there, so that way when they investigate it, they actually can go through and pick those items up. So I like to do that a lot. And so now let's actually test out a couple of the things that we just made. So we'll add the breath weapon to our character here. So she just now has a breath weapon on here. So if she doesn't have to target that, so she'll do breath weapon. It's going to say use a ability slot, use its feature, and boom, does its roll. And he failed, so he ended up taking no damage because he's immune to fire. So, but that's how that works. And so in like the example of like the spell that we made, So I'll go back into this, and we will go to spell, temporary healing, and that's this one. Let me prepare it real quick. Or that. That's right. I made it a cantrip, didn't I? Well, it's going to be an OP cantrip. So I'll have to go through to prepare it. And so click prepared, and we'll do always prepared, like my other cantrips. And we'll do temporary healing, the normal. And then so she got 8 additional temporary healing, and kind of the use of how some of the spells work. And so what I'll actually do for my creating like a loot item for, you know, my characters like that, and of doing things for them to be able to research or look at when they do an investigation check, what I'll do is I'll just create an item. So whatever the thing is going to be, so if it's going to be like, you know, a shelf or something like that, then I'll say like shelf. It'll be a blank item. I'll go to my sheet and I will change it to a loot MP5 sheet or 5e sheet, and then I'll make sure I have a permission for them to observe it. And then what I usually do is, like, if I have like a specific item that I made, so like if I had like the great sword and then the potion, you know, and then like the pin, I'll add those items to that sheet. And then I've been using a image for me, which is I just have this little tiny black dot, so it kind of helps me be able to see it a little better on the map. But you can set it up as like an invisible image or whatever you want to do. But then once I have that, then I will go and put it on, make sure I have the right one, it's the bottom one. So like say I'll put the item right here, I'll take this image, I'll go into the token itself, and I will change the scale of it to as small as it gets, and it'll just make it just like a tiny black dot. So that way when they walk up and they search this thing, and then once I make it invisible, then they say, hey, I want to investigate this shelf right here, and then they'll perform, you know, an investigation check, and then depending on what they get, I say, okay, you got a 2, you didn't find anything. But, you know, if they got like anything that's reasonable, then when they look for it, then I'll reveal it, and then they'd be able to click on it and be able to say, oh, okay, here's what they find, and they can take what they want from it. But that's pretty much it. Creating items is actually kind of fun, especially because you can create a bunch of just various things. The SRD is going to be your best friend, though. It has a ton of things already in there ready to go for you to be able to kind of give you an idea what to make and how to make it. But if you have any questions or anything, please let me know, and I'll be there to help you if I can. And until then, I'll see you in the next one.